I'm really enjoying discussing and showcasing if certain fictional characters with a badass set of skills can defeat and survive analog horror. So naturally, I wanted to take a look at Warhammer 40K Space Marines and see if one of them could beat analog horror. A whole squad of them would tear through nearly anything, so restricting it to one seems like a better idea. I've also just recently gotten into Warhammer 40K, and it's some of the most fun I've ever had with a hobby. For those who don't know or need a refresher, Warhammer 40K is a miniature tabletop wargame with an expansive, dark, and grim story full of supernatural, sci-fi, and some fantasy elements set around the 41st millennium, created by Games Workshop. Reading up on the lore, piecing together the minis, painting them, and playing them is such an incredible experience for my friends and I. And you know what? Shoutouts to the Gaming Nexus in Mount Gambier. I was holidaying in the South Australian town with my girlfriend, and little did I know that my 30-minute conversation with the worker there explaining the hobby to me at 10 PM while my girlfriend wished she was anywhere else would change my life. My girlfriend's life for a better or worse, and the lives of my friends I've roped into the hobby. There will be no escape for any of us, just like there won't be any for the analog horror entities that are in this video. So we'll be focusing on the previously mentioned Space Marines. Simply put, they're genetically modified super soldiers who fight for the Imperium of Man. There are lots of different types of Space Marines, but I want to pick the Ultramarines chapter because they're the most recognizable ones on top of their large arsenal of tools and weapons for slaughtering heretics. I'll discuss those in detail throughout the video, and I wanted to structure the video in a way where I can connect certain analog horror creatures or series to different Chaos factions for our Space Marine to take on, and that's because it would be on topic and I thought it'd be a fun thing to do for the video. So like and subscribe if you enjoy this video. Everything I talk about and show will be linked in the description, and I'll also have my second channel, Soda Jump, linked there as well. Now, with all of that being said, let's see if a Space Marine can beat and survive analog horror. First off, I just want to say that I'm not going to go too in-depth with explaining the analog horror heretics for this video, since I've talked about them countless times in previous ones. And honestly, I think it would just bloat this video. So with that being said, I want to start off with the Boiled One, aka Fen 218, created by DoctorNowhere, a Chaos Demon in this case. But what kind of Chaos Demon? Considering that it's red, I'd say it's an exalted lesser demon of Khorne, and I'll explain why. Khorne is the Chaos God of rage, war, hatred, wrath, blood, martial, honor, strength, and murder. Followers of Khorne are blood-crazed slaughterers. They kill for the sake of spilling blood to strengthen Khorne. But that doesn't sound like the Boiled One now, does it? He intercepts TV signals and photographs to psychologically attack its victims. If it wins that fight, the victim will be found in a pseudo-coma the next day, forever seeing the Boiled One in their cognition and dreams. This is all to possibly feed on the victim, haunt them, and prophesy the end of the living plane on Earth, where the skies open up and pour blood to all of its victims. What a terrible thing to prophesize, and knowing of the impending doom might sway some people to join in on the chaos. Khorne loves blood too, and that's why I think the Boiled One would be an exalted lesser demon. It's not physically strong or on the level of a greater demon, but it has special abilities and a clear objective under Khorne's rule that's different to a lesser demon with a lack of will. Only Khorne would have the power to bestow a demon with that kind of power and responsibility, so that's my thought process on all of that. However, the torturous feeding on their spines and putting victims into a pseudo-coma isn't exactly spilling blood quickly and efficiently for Khorne, but ignore that conflict, ignore the contrast. Because you know what? Someone's got to spread the word of Khorne and the blood shower that will be. But can it get through to the Ultramarine and put him into a pseudo-coma? Space Marines of the Imperium have been well documented becoming heretics and joining a god of Chaos's army. A suppression and elimination of human weaknesses are what soon-to-be Space Marines go through, and only the toughest survive, yet they're not immune to the influence of the Chaos gods. After all, that's how legions of Chaos Marines came to be, so it's not entirely out of the picture. So at a minimum, the chances of our Marines succumbing is low, but it's still a chance. There are countermeasures us humans can take when exposed to the Boiled One and its heretical words, like wearing earplugs, reading Bible verses, etc. The Lone Marine can definitely utilize similar things to the same effect. An equivalent to the earplugs would be something like the Marine's helmet or other relevant communication devices he has. Honestly, that can be said for all of the countermeasures. I can't really find anything about Marine helmets being able to mute the outside world, but I'm sure their psychic conditioning and mental fortitude would definitely help them. That would be a key countermeasure for our Space Marine while he witnesses Fen through a video. If our lone Ultramarine was in contact with his brothers and communicates with them using Voxcasters and communication— No, not that Vox, please. Not that Vox. Then his brothers could assist in keeping the heretical voices at bay. But that's where the sacred texts, Codex Astartes, come into play and remind the Space Marine of his duty, brothers, and allegiance. As long as he can remember what's written, can say them to himself, or even write them down, it would be tremendously helpful at keeping heresy away. And now for the big question: can the Ultramarine beat the Boiled One? I've made arguments in previous videos that it can be physically interacted with if it enters your cognition due to it being able to interact with you while you're in a pseudocoma. Someone claims to have their spine fed on after all. It touched him, so you can touch it, right? So I see our Ultramarine showing no mercy to the Boiled One and shredding it to bits, no matter how big it appears to him. Despite the low chance of turning to chaos, heresy, I think he can overcome any voices or visions the Boiled One would try to use to distract him, or even drive him mad. So the best course of action in taking care of Fen would be to blow and slice it into chunks and bits. I can imagine the Ultramarine running towards the Boiled One or the voices, shooting his bolter and swinging his chainsword at close range, fighting off the paralysis effects thanks to his transhuman body. Oh, and you can't forget him reciting the Codex Astartes to stay sane. I hope I made that sound cool because I think it would be a badass fight, and honestly, a pretty worthy battle against heresy. Now next up, I wanted to stay on topic with Khorne's followers and look at entities I'd considered to be berserkers, which are the Chaos Marines of Khorne. So that means Vita Carnis, created by Darian Quilloy. Vita Carnis is living meat in Latin, and that's what these entities are. They seemingly came out of nowhere after a deal was made with humans, and they're set to take over the Earth. Invading the Earth to turn and sway over humans by promising them resources on their dwindling planet? Huh. Sounds like something a Chaos God would orchestrate to convert people part of the Imperium of Man over to their side. The Singularities, the supposed leaders and creators of the living meat, are interested in technology like radios that emit frequencies. In the context of 40k, Khorne is the only one that can create his demons that serve under him, so it doesn't really make sense for the Singularities to do so, but please bear with me, for the sake of the video, let's make an exception. In terms of the bigger picture in the 40k universe, it sounds like the Singularities are trying to infiltrate the Adeptus Mechanicus, a cult that adorn themselves with mechanical prosthetics and worship a machine god. If left unchecked, Earth will become consumed by Vita Carnis creatures. They'll assimilate with technology and use the frequencies in them to create monstrosities and maybe even human hybrids. With a techno-flesh hellscape on the rise, there's only one man that can stop it. The Ultramarine. He'll be faced with the horrors of Vita Carnis. These Vita Carnis vary in strengths and what they're capable of when attacking humans, but that doesn't translate very well to Space Marines. Their armor are as heretical resistant as they can be, making the Vita Carnis physically inferior to our Lone Marine. They'd be on the same level as, say, a small Tyrannid, a galaxy-destroying virus of Xeno, and they can be stomped or taken out with a slew of weapons. The species should be dealt with through immolation, plasma, and blunt force trauma because they're piles of walking flesh. Sure, they can be cut through, but what are the chances that they reassemble or continue moving? Who would want to take that chance? The Ultramarine would be burning and brutalizing these things, and their fleshy strength would do nothing to him or his armor. Space Marines wear armor called power armor. It's made of thick ceramite plates that are light, extremely durable, needing something of a high caliber or power to break through, and heat and energy based weapon resistant. It's heavy, but it has direct methods that enhance a wearer's movement and strength. It would take tens or even hundreds of Vita Carnis to take down this lone marine, or at the very least, overpower him. And even then, it's not like the Vita Carnis are found everywhere. Civilizations still exist on Earth like nothing's going on, and the Space Marine would easily survive in this world. But him beating them is another question. Monoliths that surround and presumably protect singularities would be quite the feat to destroy, seeing as they're hundreds of feet tall. But as long as the Space Marine doesn't get too close to them, he'll have nothing to worry about. And then in a situation where he's able to locate and find the singularities, what on earth would they be able to do to him? As far as he's concerned, these are exalted demons that help birth new demons, and they need to be destroyed, and that's what he'll do. His trusty bolter should be more than enough to do the trick on these plasma globe looking creatures, which makes me think they can just be shattered and destroyed with enough force. It's in the name, but bolters shoot out explosive bolts, so what creature isn't immune to that? Like, I'm sure the singularities aren't as weak as the glass of, say, an electro ball, but I imagine they can be shattered and killed in that way. And any humans that have joined the side of Chaos that are protecting the singularities would, I think the result would be obvious as to what would happen to them. But really, I think the stars of the fight would have to be the creatures of Vita Carnis that have fighting or hunting capabilities. The setting up of traps and stalking of our Ultramarine would make for quite a tense situation, because wherever he goes, he'll be hunted. However, he will persist, and it will be a slaughter painted in flesh and blood. And now, I want to move on to something that would fit right in with the Slaanesh demons, or demonettes. The painter created by UrbanSpook. Wait, don't click off of the video. I know the series is controversial, but the antagonist, the painter, and her lackey fit right into this faction. Worshippers of the Chaos god Slaanesh show off their dedication to their god by eroticizing their appearance in various ways. After all, Slaanesh is the god of excess, and that is abundant here, and the thrill and enjoyment of inflicting pain and other feelings is what fuels Slaanesh and their worshippers. The painter is a killer that thrives in inflicting as much pain and suffering to her victims as possible for her own warped and sexual gratification. Her senses and feelings that make her feel alive have clearly been numbed, and regular killings don't do it for her anymore. So she goes to vile, putrid, and inhuman extremes to feed her desires, just like many of the Emperor's children, a legion of Chaos Space Marines devoted to Slaanesh. Or you know, her and her lackey kind of look like demons too, so it all just fits in. But anyway, if you've heard of the painter, then you've probably heard of the horse incident or the infamous child victim dubbed Fucktoy Corey. That's all I really need to say to paint part of a giant picture. Like, this series is not for the faint of heart. And speaking of the series, with the help of her goon, they also paint their victims during their final moments, or after they've committed those unspeakable acts to them. The painter is vile, and the torture she's inflicted on others, even on her lackey, and the immense sexual and sadistic gratification she gets would make her quite the Slaanesh worshipper. She may even take it further or stray from the image than most worshippers, as her methods are psychopathic and not luxurious looking. So what can the painter do against our lone armored unit? Well, she seems to be a woman of average height, thin, but still physically capable of creating chaos and torment for her victims with the help of her accomplice. Despite the help, she was still able to locate, torture, paint, and kill without the accomplice for a bit. So, guns, swords, and blunt weapons of the sharp, caliber, explosive bolts, fire, and plasma kind are at the Marine's use here. I mean, the same can be said for any other situation in this video, but just look at her, like, what is she gonna do? I mean, even grenades, health packs, if he needs them, and more are at his use. Like, it's basically a one-man army versus a woman. Like, after everything I've said, there's literally nothing the painter and her homeboy could do to our Space Marine. Knives, bullets, and their physical strengths combined wouldn't even graze him. He'd just absolutely pummel them into a pile of mush, slice them to bits, or bolt them to death. however he'd want to kill them, he could do it. He's not going to be sadistic in nature, but he's just going to get the job done. None of her persuasions to heresy would even faze him either, obviously. I mean, come on, look at this. You really think a Space Marine aligned with the Imperium of Man is going to switch his allegiance for this? This and her lifestyle would be quite the weak temptation from Slaanesh. It's an obvious win for the Marine, and honestly, there aren't really any other analog horror entities that fit as the Slaanesh worshipper, so we'll move on from there. But if you think of one, let me know in the comments section below. If I decide to do another Warhammer 40K video like this, then I'll include it. From here, we're gonna get real stinky and look at things that would be aligned with Nurgle's Plague Legions, and that would be the Medusa virus of the Stone Cold series created by Mythical Films. The absolute legend, Nurgle is the god of death, decay, disease, destruction, perseverance, survival, and rebirth. Nurgle likes to target humans who fear death, among other things. Nurgle bestows them with diseases, and then they go to the Plague Lord to ease the pain and despair from those diseases. It's kind of a lose-lose situation for the humans, but you know what? Doing so makes looking like this livable. And then there's no more fear of death since it leads to decay, which is a rebirth and another important part of life as taught by Nurgle. Life in death. So in the context of 40k, something like the Medusa virus would be a rebirth into a new life through the plague, living with it until dying. I've talked about this analog horror virus a lot, so in one sentence, the virus infects victims through their eyes. And if they can't remove their eyes in time, nausea, loss of pain, muscle loss, paralysis, and more in varying stages of infection are seen in victims. In the earlier stages, I can see victims writhing in pain and their impending doom, but looking to Nurgle and then joining the Chaos Legion. So, can our lone Ultramarine survive the virus? Due to a Space Marine's enhanced physiology and their gene seed, the genetic material needed to create them, they're pretty much immune to natural-born viruses and diseases. However, the Medusa virus doesn't seem all that natural, far from it, yet it still doesn't seem strong enough to infect the Ultramarine. Maybe if he held his stare with an infected for a really long time, it could happen? It could give the virus enough time to mutate to infect him, but the chances of it being that strong and intelligent are pretty slim. However, Nurgle's sicknesses are strong enough to infect Space Marines. Not even a built-in gas mask can save them because of the metaphysical nature of Nurgle's diseases and gases. So, say the Marine did contract something like the Medusa virus or an illness bestowed onto him by Nurgle, he'd be writhing in agony and ailments until he died, or begged for Nurgle's blessings to join the Plague Legion. Heresy, I tell you, but in terms of the Medusa virus, yeah, it's an extremely low chance, and the infected pose no threat to our Ultramarine. He wouldn't even need a weapon to take them out. His fists will do, especially since the virus slowly debilitates and kills its hosts. So, in a way, it helps the Ultramarine beat it, but it won't be truly beaten until every host dies. Sure, he could theoretically hunt down each infected until there's no more, but he could also just wait it out, or do a mix of both. Anything works, really. And that brings us to our final analog horror entity and series, which will be the Fungus from the Smile tapes created by Patorikku. In the tapes, we're clued into a drug being sold in the streets that causes people to smile uncontrollably, and that's because the drugs are laced with a mysterious fungus. So, more of Nurgle's Plague Legions, which I wanted to stay on the topic of. Once someone is infected, they'll progressively become more and more violent, deranged, and sickly looking with a smile that looks to break the human limits on how big a smile can be. Now that's the smile of a heretic, and the fungus can somehow detect each other in other hosts as the infected only attack those who aren't infected. So it's basically a zombie infection, and the zombies are referred to as Smileys. The name doesn't really strike fear now, does it? But kind of like Nurgle, you know? So maybe that's intentional. Either way, I think we can safely say that we can treat the Smileys similarly to those that were infected with the Medusa virus. Looking at the build of the infected, we can see that they're still human, just extremely erratic, manic, and violent with a large smile plastered on their face. May I refer you to this image to show you just how big Space Marines, give or take, are compared to the average human? Also, 6 foot is the average human height? Oh my. Anyone under 6 foot is now considered a Nurgling. And someone now classified to be a Nurgling or your average human wouldn't stand a chance against our lone Ultramarine. He's just way too big and strong to fall to a horde of zombies, especially with his trusty bolter. The icing on the cake is that as the fungal infection really matures, the host is left withered and physically weak, making them all the more easier to kill but probably more efficient in infecting others. Pummeling or slicing through a smiley so easily allows the fungus to spread into the air. Luckily for our Space Marine, his helmet and every other Marine's are fitted with a respiratory connected to the Vox grill that can filter out gases, poisons, and toxins while also being able to shut off with a thought. When this is done, oxygen is breathed in from an internal oxygen supply, so it can be filtered out or completely shut out. Either option is perfect for the Marine, but what would happen if he breathed in the fungus? Would he survive? Funguses are natural born, so his physiology should be able to fight off the spores and kill them. If not, I think the infection time and stages would be much longer than when a human is infected. I imagine it looking a lot like the Black Rage seen in Blood Angels. The chance of this happening is minuscule, so I think that the Marine can survive the Smile Tape's fungus. This means he could definitely beat it as well by easily outliving any infected and taking them out. To minimize the spread of the fungus, blunt and fire weaponry should be prioritized being used. That way, open wounds are minimized and the fire can burn any traces of fungus and spores. It doesn't seem like the world is infected with the fungus either, so killing those that are infected to put them out of their misery and to stop the spread of the infections is the key to beating it, and our Marine would gladly do so for the Imperium of mankind. Just, don't look into the civilian casualties. And there we go. We've seen how the Ultramarine can survive and beat the analog horror entities that he was put up against, and are you surprised? Do you think he should have lost or done things differently? Let everyone know in the comments section, and there's also a whole fantasy focused version of the series called Age of Sigma if that tickles your fancy too. If you want to see another one of these where a Space Marine is pitted up against more horrors, let me know. And let me know if I got something wrong or could have added a bit more to the video too. I love learning about Warhammer, so I'd really appreciate it, and at this point I feel like I'm just peddling Warhammer. But also check out the creators of the videos highlighted in this video if you want to dive further into analog horror. They make fantastic stuff. Like, subscribe, and check out my second channel Soda Jump if you want to see more from me. And as always, we can't forget the shout out to my lovely patrons and YouTube members. And a big shout out to the highest tier Patreon members, Joel Matthew Colgrove and La Creatura. Thank you both for your continued contributions, and thank you to everyone else too. You guys are absolute legends. Stay tuned for more content like this. Everything talked about will be in the description if you want to further look into them. And I'll catch ya in the next one.